India is on fire. I want the results. Non-negotiable, imperative, and uncompromising. God is in details, so is devil. Giants can fall.
What's the most important element?
Guess what gets questioned? Your character. Valuation versus values.
So talent management is your core.
You don't have time for people who make you successful. Oh my God. When you walk into the office, let everybody know the lion has walked in, the leader is there. You know what you know. You know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You actually do not need titles to be a leader. Holy smokes. No, I'm not angry. I need to see those guys.
Caught red-handed.
If you are not a problem solver, you're a professor.
The journey to discovering your own self.
Mr. X, are you a brand?
What do you mean when you say a healthy culture company?
Freedom to deliver results. Hafiz Contractor is like a brand. When I worked with Microsoft, the number one, it becomes your default setting. They need role models. You actually become rich when you make others rich. Wellness as a high-yield strategic asset. There's a concept called Brahma Muhurtam. So 3 things, fear, doubt, and worry are the termites.
Every day there's a news from the corporate world of burnout, and there are suicides and
Over 49,000 people die by suicide in our country.
Today's conversation is with a leader who has consistently shaped how organizations think about strategy, leadership, and transformation at a global scale. A gold medalist at the graduation, followed by MBA from Tata Institute and a PhD from European Global School, and is a global executive coach certified by Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Dr. Pramod Sadarjoshi is the founder and CEO of Talent Smith Consulting and managing partner at Cornerstone International Group India, a strategy OD and leadership evangelist known for driving culture-centric, metrics-backed organizational growth. Recognized among India's best HR leaders and named a top 10 executive coach in India, he has coached numerous CEOs and CXOs, driving measurable transformation across industries and geographies. From spearheading HR function at global giants like Microsoft, JP Morgan, and HDFC Bank, driving business function at KPMG and Oracle, to becoming a trusted advisor to top leadership, his journey reflects a rare intersection of strategic acumen, deep understanding of human behavior, and a commitment to inner transformation. With a distinguished career spanning across India, the US, Europe, the Middle East, and APAC, he brings a rare blend of global perspective, boardroom expertise, and deep human insight. A certified independent director and a trusted advisor to boards and leadership teams. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pramod Sadarjoshi to today's podcast, where we unpack the intersection of strategy, people, and inner transformation. So Pramod, with this new technological wave in the corporate world, what do you think is the vibe today?
Great question. Wonderful vibe in terms of optimism. What with India's growth trajectory and growth story, India just beat Germany, no, it beat Japan. So it's now the 4th biggest economy. So if you take that as a macro level development, huge enthusiasm, buoyant kind of an attitude, growth like it's never been before. India also looks like to be the most insulated from all the development that are going around the world. So in fact, you triggered a thought. 3 months back, I was doing a Q&A with the world-renowned management guru called Dr. Ramcharan. And I really wanted to ask him about leadership in the corporate world. And his one word was, and this is not because I'm an Indian, truly coming from a global expert, he said, India is on fire.
Yes, it is.
And the question is, are we all geared up to handle that fire. When that kind of an emotive force comes from a global guru who's on the boards of about 70 companies of the Fortune 500, that's quite a statement. And it has credibility, it is data centric, and a huge impetus for India's growth story. So yeah, the vibe is very good. Having said that, we need to be watchful of the guardrails, because for a sustainable future and success, guardrails play a super critical role. In fact, they ensure a sustainable success. So yeah, net, very positive, looking forward, and huge promise in the future. So that's my take on the vibe in the Indian corporate world. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, but it also comes with its own challenges, right?
It does.
How do companies sustain this crazy wave and still ensure that there is growth? So, the must-have elements, because you've coached and strategized for so many companies and you come from that expertise. So please enlighten us as to, with today's current condition, what are the must-haves for a company to then sustain and also thrive?
Okay, good one. It starts with an absolutely impeccable and immaculate vision of the board, of the CEO, factoring in all the risks. Because mind you, there are a lot of risks. There's currency rate risk, there's a war risk, and mitigating risk is a great way to start off. So frankly, as Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. And if you have the end goal with clarity of vision, I think that's job half done. That said, you need to put in place a great engines of growth. So what does that entail? Firstly, you bet you got to be ahead of the tech curve. Because Neha, it's a tsunami of sorts. The deck or the proposal I prepared last week is already obsolete. Yeah. So the rate of obsolescence of technology is making us all become nimble-footed. A. B. Unquestionably, if you're not ahead of the innovation curve, you're dead meat. Because not only the competitive landscape, the tech disruptions itself are going to make it very, very challenging. And if you do not have both, it's like wearing what's it called, a glass with print frame, forward-looking and also the short-sighted and the long-sight. So how do you not miss the big picture? And yet, how do you not take your eye off the ball? Because God is in details, so is devil. So how do you blend the two? Number 3, the most important thing, the workforce. I mean, the emotive energy of the people who work for a company. If they are not managed well, if meritocracy is not the name of the game, I think you're not playing a long game. All right? The next part is this entire geopolitical developments. I would be stupid in my strategies if I'm not incorporating the potential risks and therefore the risk mitigation strategies as a result of geopolitical developments, which whether one likes it or not, because I hear some countries are headed for a recession. With all that's going on, but you know what? The sheer horsepower, intellectual horsepower that India has in terms of talent, you bet we are saying bring it on. Bring it on, because we've got the vision, we've got the courage, we've got the execution. I call it the head, the heart, and the hand. Okay. With that, I think these are some of the growth engines which we're putting into place. And of course, the governance structure, Neha, because so many companies we've seen, as I say, giants can fall. With a weak governance structure, I sit on boards of some companies, all right? Never has there been a bigger urgency to manage governance structure. What's the point if you built a fantastic organization only to be collapsed? No names here, but I guess the viewers will know that some of the names which come in the newspapers, a fantastic start, and today they're biting the dust. So having a very mature approach, grounded, and most important, having the technical gravitas to deal, because everything is going to be tech. All right. Of course, we'll talk about the humanoid concept, which is bionic and the humanoid concept, and we will see how human element comes in. But clearly, there is no escape. And as soon as we can shake our hands, move forward, and say, embrace it with a very warm, cheerful challenge, you're the winner.
I like that. But where would you start? Let's say, I am a company today and I am running this MNC.
Yeah.
Okay. But I see problems, I see challenges like attrition, slow revenue growth, struggling with this whole AI adaptation. Where would you start, bringing that change? What's the most important element that you start with?
In fact, you triggered a wonderful thought in my mind on which I'm writing a book also now. And it's called Results with Respect. I want the results. Non-negotiable, imperative, and uncompromising. Because what are you if without results? You won't survive. That said, but not in a rat race frenzied manner, sacrificing morals, values, and governance and ethics at the altar, right? And therefore, I have to bring in the respect element. And the respect is to do with the people who work in corporates, MNCs, startups, PSUs, Indian global companies. It's very important for the captain of the ship to have that as a paradigm, as an ethos. Because if you have that, then all the other things will fall in place. But if that is missing, you'll have a great tech piece, you've got great geographical presence, but guess what? They're all not sort of falling into piece, right? Into a structure. Because remember, Neha, there's anyway so much outside your control. So can you count the variables which are going to determine your industry, your sector, your products, and quickly get ahead of those variables in terms of pragmatic, impeccable solution architecture? And I'm not throwing jargons here. So many companies, great ideas, even MNCs. But as I say, the moment they take eye of the ball, honestly, surprisingly, a lot of arrogance and complacence. Oh my God. So if you go to the neuroplasticity of it all, the left brain has got to be balanced with right brain. In fact, I'll go to a step forward. There has got to be an integration of the left brain centricity and the right brain centricity. You fall a little, skew a little here and there, you're off the mark.
Give me an example.
I will not take companies' names, but there are companies which went on to have multi-billion-dollar valuation. Today they're biting the dust because they took arrogance, they took success for granted. They took their eye off the guardrails, and they're today fighting not for survival, to finish the compliance issues. All right? And when a compliance issue comes in, guess what gets questioned? Your character. You as in company's character, its ethos, its ethics and values. All right? So you got to match the tech prowess with a sharp eye on how to run a business in the current context. So you said in the current time. So what's crazy about present times? One is unexpected variables, the curveballs which come in. The moment curveballs come in, your first thing is, do you even know how to deal with it? All right, because you don't know which angle and from where it's coming from. B, an emotive quality called courage and an attitude saying, bring it on, I will fight it, rather than getting walloped and destructed in the process. Obviously, software architecture, tech growth engines, astute, absolutely uncompromising financial discipline, right? And obviously, the most important part, the people who work for you. You know, and I'm not trying to be cliched here, but seriously look at how come everything being the same, some companies have breasted the tape the tape in the race for excellence, and some people have become an also-ran or a Me Too product. And if you actually magnifyingly look at the minor details, you'll discover is the focus on leadership and talent. To me, honestly, that is going to be the differentiator, because everything is commoditized. You can't commoditize energy. You can't commoditize values. You can't commoditize a verve and intensity and tenacity. That is your intellectual property, if I may use the word. And some companies are doing a great job by having a focus. So in the first, is it even your focus? or are you in a mad rush to, I'd written an article by the name Valuation versus Values. How's that?
Wow.
In a quest
Powerful.
for valuation games, the compromise on values has landed them neither having valuation, forget having valuation, they're not even surviving because they thought the valuation game is only about balance sheet, the funding, the venture capitalist management, and the whole works of frenzied race to manage balance sheets at the cost of values and ethics. And of late, you've seen some articles in the papers. The head of a company actually quit because of lack of values, and the valuation fell down. So that shows a very strong correlation between values and valuation game. So it's a multi-layered, multi-dimension architecture, which you need to take one at a time with tenacity of a soldier and with the focus of a Buddhist monk.
Wow, that's powerful. So what I'm getting is you're saying it's people first. Like every organization today needs to keep people on top because that's the energy that's driving your brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes and no, because I also believe systems succeed, people fail.
That's
But-
a dichotomy.
Yes, but you need these awesome, talented people high on cerebral prowess to create that system. B, when it's only people centric, ego, politics, petty mindedness comes into play, where a system insulates a structure and a company from the what I call my favorite subject, unconscious and conscious biases. It's tough enough to deal with conscious bias. What with all the legalities? Imagine the havoc caused by unconscious bias, because you don't even know what's hitting you. As I say, there are three things. You know what you know what you don't know know what you don't know. And therefore, if you do not have an augmented consciousness in the first place, the visioning, the values framework do not get complemented by the tech frameworks. So it's got to be a wonderful symbiosis, integration of all these potent forces for a company to have a sustainable revenue growth, a sustainable value structure, most important, ability to retain your at least top cream of the talent, notwithstanding the competitive competition pressures. But I always believe, and therefore results with respect. I've seen in my career, I coach a lot of CEOs and CXOs. People who refuse great salaries and big jumps simply because they're respected very high. And I believe, with due respects to Maslow's hierarchy, right, I think from a peon in an office to a CEO, the one thing he's hungry for is respect.
And recognition?
Recognition is actually a subset of respect. Because there is meritocracy, you bring in recognition, and because you recognize good talent, I feel respected. You feel respected. Imagine you had a lot of bucks, lot of big compensation package, but in the heart of hearts, you don't feel happy there. And therefore, I think an overall well-being of an individual, which then today brings in the concept of wellness, a holistic wellness.
So
The
you're
mind-
saying
yeah.
once the systems and processes are set,
Yes.
then comes the people and their well-being.
Actually, it's not
Is that-
sequential.
Yeah.
It's together. And that's the challenge. So when people ask me, what do you do? I help companies drive change. Why? Because the landscape is changing so much with so much outside your control. And I always believe if the pace within the organization is slower than the pace in the marketplace, you're dead meat. It's recipe for disaster.
I think that's the pain point today.
Pain point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, how do you perpetually have a keen focus on augmenting people capabilities and hence augmented capabilities through transformative leadership? Openness to learning, admitting when you're wrong, vulnerability acceptance, and most important, an attitude of willingness to change and adapt. That is going to be the differentiator between the Me Too, the Also Ran, and the guy who's breasted the tape in race for excellence and success. So you can't, I'm afraid, sequence it out. And people who take startups, a lot of them, can you believe it, Nia? They delegate HR function to a chartered accountant to run payroll. Payroll is not HR. We say, oh, Pramod, I'm busy doing my product development, market segmentation, tech infrastructure, support groups, AI disruptions. Understand all that. But if you do not care for people who are running these engines, right, it's a matter of time that it'll sort of taper off. So yeah, those are some of the frameworks. See, if you look at any successful company, the Meta, Microsoft, Google, the Big Five, the iBanks, right? They're all actually a little tad nervous, and I'm glad they're nervous. They're not taking their past success. There's this famous book by Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. My God, what a shift in stance. The moment that comes in, and let me tell you, this attitude trumps every other difficulty. True. And so I work in the space where we galvanize this emotive force to one common objective. And then you have a sustainable success. So it's not either or, it's got to be very integrated.
Yeah. So talent management is your core. And I think that's a very challenging space, for the top management, right? Yeah. So let's dig deeper into that. Like, as a coach, what's your framework? How do you kind of give out a solution for a company to manage talent?
Insightful. So, firstly, the guiding philosophy should be meritocracy. The moment it's like railway tracks, between rail track going this way, at the initial stage, the degree of separation is 5 degrees, 10 degrees, and over a point of time, you suddenly realize, oh heck, they've gone diverse, right? If you do not have meritocracy as an ethic, as a values framework, you're not going to do a good job of talent management. You're doing a catch-up game, number one. Number two, you need to define what is talent in your organization with respect to your industry, your geography, and your core product specs. Number three, you need to have a clear differentiation between performance and potential. A lot of times, pure performance is taken as potential. When I say that's a mistake, and why it's a mistake is because it's more of the same, and you're not having any new changes. You're not having new thinking in the way people are managed. Conversely, if you're only in high potential going by fancy degrees, and degrees today anyway, it doesn't matter. My MBA, my PhD is zilch if I do not have the skills to adapt the latest AI tools to make me very productive and extremely market savvy.
True.
And therefore, the talent management framework, the famous 9-box grid of talent potential versus performance.
The T1 to T9.
Yeah. Your T1 category is a guy who's high on performance and potential.
That's your sweet spot.
Sweet spot. And you know what I tell my clients and my coachees? Do whatever it takes to retain these guys. They are the people who walk on water, right? They are the ones who are adding immense value. High on performance, high on potential. Reward them today. I always tell people in a little bit of a humor, I say, keep telling your T1s, you're good people, they are good. It's like you need to keep telling your wife she's good. Because if you don't tell her she's good, your neighbor will tell her she's good. And neighbor here is your competitor.
Perfect analogy, I would say.
Absolutely. Come on. I mean, and why are you suffering from non-abundance mindset? Tell them they're good, they feel good. And that's a respect and recognition. All right. Number one. Number two, T2 is, and each companies make a choice between T2 and T3. Some people put high potential, but medium performance as T2. We're saying, no, this guy's potential. and he will sort of go far.
Yeah, I think it's very subjective, but overall, I think we need to talk about how do you get all of the other T's to T1. I think that's what is the final goal.
Okay, firstly, bad news. If there are 100 people spread between 9 boxes, I'm sorry, the T7, T8 and T9, you're wasting your time, and it's called, what's the new Gen Z word? Delulu, right? It's Delulu.
So you let them go, basically.
T9, you put them on notice today, if not, say goodbye, in a nice way, respectful way, whatever legal framework sort of provides for, your company policy provide for.
So 3 are
thank
gone.
you.
Yeah.
Definitely T9. And there's a financial angle here. Now, assuming if there is 10% of your people cost, 10%, 15% of your people cost of X is being spent on this T9 who are low on performance, low on potential, right? Just imagine if they let go, that 10% can be transferred to T1 and T2, T3. So you're not suffering from your total increment budget with fighting with the CFO for budgets. It's already out there. You just need to get a good calibration of that. So to answer your question very bluntly, everybody is not going to make it to T1. In fact, if you want to push a T2 to T1, who's middle on performance, high on potential, right? Give him stretch assignments. Conversely, somebody who's medium on potential but high on performance, right? You probably need to give him a stretch assignment to see what's stopping him.
So
right?
basically, there are frameworks for each.
There's a
category.
solution architecture for each of the boxes.
And that's your expertise.
That's my expertise. I actually run a 3-day workshop for each of them. And I'll tell you the most challenging one, and which is tragic. Imagine a high potential guy on low performance. Oh my God. What's going on? You just hired him from brilliant pedagogy and credibility and gravitas, and he's not performing. A, right guy in the wrong job? Possible. B, a toxic boss. 3, he's going through huge personal challenges. Death, divorce. 4, sometimes he's become a victim of bad financial habits, right? So he might be sticking around to eke out his living, but he's just doing the bare minimal, whereas potentially assessed through Hoggins, assessed through MBTI, assessed through various frameworks, right? He's good, but not delivering, right? That's very important challenge because you got talent, not performing. Conversely, what do you do with somebody assiduous, integritous, high performer, but he's not gifted with high talent? Use them as talent transfer people, success transfer, because they master the art. Put them in jobs which require astute discipline because they're not very creative. They're not coming out with new solutions. So that's the way you sort of calibrate and galvanize your workforce based on this structure.
You play on the strengths.
Yes. And most important, this is not an annual exercise simply because the amount of change that's happening in the talent space, you got to do this mapping every 3 months. And here's where the problem, the line manager who's busy doing revenue saying, Pramod, I don't have a job for this clerical stuff. Clerical stuff? Holy smokes. You don't have time for people who make you successful. How many people do an honest job of talent assessment? Or it's a form-filling exercise. Having coaching conversations. It's called crucial conversations. How do you tell a person he's not promoted, but he's not a write-off? You just need to cap that delta. But 9 or 10 people get frustrated and they leave. How do you hold that? What is your personal stature as a leader? Do you enjoy credibility when you give a negative feedback? How do you do constructive criticism? So there's a whole lot of science and art in managing people. Look, it ain't going to come to you on a silver platter. Hard work, put in the hard yards on each. Do you know every one of the employees who work for you? What's his mojo? Why is mojo going down? What are his strengths? What turns him on? What turns him off at workplace? And then, of course, your overall governance structure where a guy should say, you know what? I didn't make it this promotion round, but a fair assessment.
Yeah.
I fell short at the hustings, and my competitor got through, but it was fair. That's much better than giving rise to nepotism. And the biggest problem, Neha, is in today's world, perception is reality.
Yeah.
So there are two ways. Either you bring perception close to reality and merge it. So there is one reality. Or you take reality with data and blast out the perception. So that there is no duality in the way people perceive as organization. That's my take.
No, it's amazing. I think we should
And
double
sorry.
down on leadership.
Yeah.
Because, so let's just simplify as to if a person who's joined the corporate world today,
Yeah.
and he knows we are all aware. I mean, everybody's talking about leadership.
Yes.
But how do I start to work on myself to become a leader?
Okay.
At any level.
Okay.
Because finally, everybody's goal is to reach the top.
Right.
But when I start, how do I, start preparing to be a leader so that as I go up, I'm always...
Sure.
Yeah.
So for this, one has to begin with defining what is a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you want to go, then which road goes where doesn't matter. I believe there are many dimensions, but 5 critical dimensions of leader or leadership. Number 1, Neha, unmistakably results. You're a suave guy, fancy Ivy League qualifications, you speak well, charming guy, no results, no skin in the game. I want to drill that day one. You will be measured on a metrics-driven results. So the guy should know he can't butter up or suck up to some people, be nice, be a charming guy at a company party. No. Results, for that you need to have clearly defined goals. All right? So results. Number 2, he has to have what I call influencing capability without leadership title. You actually do not need titles to be a leader. The youngest rookie in the organization can just take on responsibility, deliver his domain results, and people, the soundbites already go, hey, this guy is showing some trace of leadership. I think, so that's number 2. Number 3, ability to get along with people. Haven't I seen so many talented people, combination of superiority complex, arrogance, complacence. You don't make it early because you need to really carry people. Number 4, unmistakably, you got to be a very effective communicator. Whether it's communicating goals in a goal setting so that there is no ambiguity whatsoever, immaculate clarity, extremely critical, or in communicating the vision of an organization. And when I say this, I don't mean verbal communication. What I as a leader bring to the table in terms of my body language, my values, my ethics, my decision-making abilities. How do I take decisions? On merits, on facts, not on opinions and rumors, right? And everybody's watching you when you're a leader. Oh, you bet, when you walk into the office, let everybody know the lion has walked in, the leader is there. That's what I call leadership presence, executive presence. It's there. You're transmitting it. And if you're not even aware of that concept, bad enough you don't have it and you're not even aware, even God won't help you. You're staring down the barrel, right? And last important thing, and I want to really talk about it, the character ethic. And here when I say character, I'm not going to the domain of his marital status or his likes and dislikes. Character is principle-centered leadership, living the values and the vision of the organization through every bit of action, right from the way he sends an email to projecting talent shortage, to talent acquisition, and to managing and to be a very well-prepared guy who's got completely hands-on approach, and more importantly, he's not missing the details. There's a term these days going around called peak detailing, right?
Yeah.
God is in detail, so peak detailing. So for getting this new talent, you need to lay down the framework of leadership. Because then the guy knows, I'm going to be tested out on these things. And then, Neha, It's not important to define. Have the tools of measurement. A great architecture without tools to measure and map it, right? Discipline, for instance, right? You can keep saying, come on time and all that. Just place the biometer out there. People know, I get recorded there, right? And everybody at the end of results, R&R, should know fairness was established. Now, I understand there are politics. I understand there are biases and prejudices. I understand sometimes you need to manage an environment. But an astute stakeholder manager, right, becomes not just a boss, he evolves into an executive coach. He's seen as literally a guru in the gurudom kind of field. Also, one most important thing, the guy should know, not by your speech, that this company is investing in my intellectual property development.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once I know I'm being cared for, you don't have to just pat my back. Respect means, please reward me for the bunch of talent I bring to the table and reward it fairly, and give me a tarmac. In the aviation industry, the tarmac is very important. Give me a good enough trajectory in the tarmac so that I know I have a long path to cover. I think if you have got this and you communicate well and you have a systems architecture, right, which captures this unmistakably, you're bound for success. It's when, most important, the boss has to be secure. So you talk to leadership, somebody was asking me, what is the one leadership belief that you thought would happen and has failed, or it's gone out of the window? It starts with the boss becoming insecure and he not upgrading his talent. Soon he will be obsolete and he will be walked over by his juniors. So skill augmentation, knowledge augmentation is an imperative and non-negotiable.
Very powerful. I'm also wondering, what's the right way for a company to train a leader? So I'm talking about now, the intern level, the executive level, who are the new joinees. What's the right way for a company? Or is there a framework where you handhold them and there is a long-term sustainable growth for the individual and hence the company?
Right. Oh, wonderful. So first thing is, before you set the training, you need to know and identify, it's called gap between the position competencies and person competencies. I wish there was a whiteboard I could have drawn and shown it to you. But what it really means is, if there is, let's say, an entry-level intern, a software engineer, or an MBA in a marketing intern, right? It has to be clearly articulated, what does that role entail? So do I as a leader even have that clarity? A. B. There is this Mr. X or Miss X hired. What is this person made of in terms of technical brilliance and behavioral quotient? The two have to be merged and you need to find out the gap. So that's what is generally called as a training gap analysis. So your starting point is find out what needs to be trained. Number one. Number two, have a very clear thought process on what is the tech training, technical training, supply chain, marketing, admin, purchase, finance, HR, what have you. There are some tech specs, right? And the second is a behavioral training. All right?
The soft skills.
Soft skills. Especially, Neha, when I see people, this is very interesting, purely based on their number performance, say the group of 10 people, 2 people score high, and they think these 2 are good guys, and they made leaders. And I tell them, if you definitely want to reward them, just make sure before you give them the leadership positions, do the behavioral leadership training. Okay? Because you said, oh, these guys have outsmarted others, and therefore, maybe, for instance, anger management. For instance, tolerance to ambiguity. For instance, decision making. So as long as he was an individual contributor, he rocked. Now suddenly, and look at the dynamics. He suddenly made the boss. The dynamics is he's now got to be the boss of his peer. How easy is that? Till yesterday, they both put their arms around and went for a movie and had a beer. Now suddenly this guy is to say, dude, we are still friends, but I need results. You can't take our batch friendship at Management Institute for granted. So, training, gap analysis, and clearly identify, linked to a position, what are the behavioral competencies and what are the technical competencies. And now with agentic AI and predictive analytics and a whole lot of training, it's huge.
And there's a playbook for this.
There's a playbook. And again, now, two dimensions. There is on-prem, offline training in person, and there's a whole lot of computer-based training, which is modules, self-certifications. Now
Strength test.
You strength test, right? You got to really manage that because there are calibrated levels, there are proficiency levels, and as you keep upgrading yourself, you get assessed and gets tested on the ground, right? And also, I want to divorce certification from application. So people notch up certification impressing, but dude, I don't find it applied in your job, right? Coming to the leadership or the behavioral training, right? I mean, today there are people even who are teaching accent training to presence of how do you even dress up. There is, you must read one article. I forget the author. He was an Indian guy. Every organization has a smell. And that smell.
What a title.
Yeah, that smell is symbolic of culture. And we're going to come to culture.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's the core.
Yeah. So this gentleman has to know what it takes. And let me tell you what some smart guys I have seen doing it. Okay. They already, and very subtle this is. If I'm at an assistant manager level, I already start displaying behavioral patterns of a manager level. If I'm at a manager level,
That's a green flag.
and I let people know I'm exhibiting and demonstrating AVP level. So that's what they call being ahead of the curve. With that thinking, you then start developing those modules. I have actually developed a model and I've published a paper. Okay, it's called the Call of Growth, and
We'll link it up. For
yeah,
sure.
and I want to share that.
Yeah.
It made a runaway success, and it became converted into a 3-day program, and I developed a tool. So it's a wonderful integrating of tech quotient and behavioral quotient. And what happens is, over a period of time, you have to make the transition. So when you hit at this SVP level, of course you got to know tech level, but you got to know how to manage conflicts. You can't then go to say, I'm an ace at Excel spreadsheet and PowerPoint or AI tool.
And technical is easier.
Easier, right?
Yeah. Behavioral is the challenging part. Yeah.
For instance, and I've got another framework which I've developed, and I'll try and show that to you. Imagine your talent base on X-axis and Y-axis. Diversity and inclusion. You must have, and here I'm not talking the gender stuff. I'm talking about diversity of talent. Somebody is good at numerics. Somebody is good at presentation. Somebody is good at client interface. Somebody is awesome at back office. Mastery over the rugged, monotonous eye for detail job. Diverse talent. Here, inclusiveness is camaraderie. Having abundance mentality. Having inclusiveness. Right? Now imagine on X and Y axis, right? This is 9-9, this is 9-1, this is 1-9, and this is 0-0. Where are you on this? So a good leader and also good, a follower has to know, where does it fit into this matrix?
Self-awareness.
Huge. Oh my God, you hit it. People with brilliant IQ, high lived-in centricity, but zero self-awareness. It's like people, when they discover they have diabetes, it's bad enough you have diabetes, you're not even aware you have diabetes. And suddenly they go for this random annual executive health checkup, and the doc says, dude, you're at the 4th stage. What are you saying? I don't sweat. Heart attack doesn't give you symptoms. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Here are the blood reports or whatever, right? So similar to behavioral competencies, I might want to enact. I told one coachee, listen, you have anger management issues. There's a 360-degree feedback on you. No, I'm not angry. I need to see those guys. There you go. You just demonstrated. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's DNA. It's coming out.
Caught red-handed.
I mean, you're suffering from cognitive dissonance. You're not even aware. You have that as part of your DNA.
I think living in denial is the biggest curb to growth.
Very much, absolutely. And therefore, there are a lot of these behavioral Hogan assessments, Savile Row, Gallup's, a whole lot of assessments and tools out there. Of late, many more have come up, right, which actually scientifically validate your behavior pattern. That is super critical to nurture a long-term talent. In fact, I would like to quote two companies which stand out, Unilever worldwide and Hindustan Lever, Procter & Gamble, not to exclude other companies, but these are, I know for sure, because they've got an amazing system of developing leaders. In fact, they're called the University of General Managers and CEOs.
Wow, please tell us about that.
Yes. So
Like,
if
as
you,
in, again, the structure. Like, are they doing it at every level? And what's the ideal thing to do? Because there's executive level, mid-management, top management. So, take us through that.
I forget the name of the lady, Anita Menon, who now heads Unilever in India. She joined as a management trainee. She's the CEO of India today. How they have calibrated,
What a
measured,
trajectory.
developed. She was in London and she came down, right? She heads Liver. Another one, a friend of mine, Leena Nair, right?
Wow.
She's heading Chanel. She went on to become the HR head for India. Basis that, she went on to head global head of HR for Unilever. And now she's not head of HR, she's global CEO. She runs
What
business
growth.
of Chanel,
Crazy.
right? And these are just two
Commendable.
names because I know them, these cases. And Leena, I know her, we met. We belong to the HR fraternity. How they've kept up the bar raising of their own personal growth. Organizational attention, boss attention, yes or no. So why I quoted these are two live examples. I'm sure there are many companies now who are really investing in talent growth.
Yeah, so I want to actually double down on this because do you think it's the contribution from the company to build leadership in people, or is it two-way? Like the company can give it, but also the individual has to respond.
It's always
and absorb.
It's always a combo. The company has an architecture, a systems, and a clear road path. And here is a person who says, "Bring it on. I want to accept the challenge."
Because you also need to be willing to change it.
There is a technical ladder, there is a management ladder, there is a career path, but I'm not biting the bullet. God help you. So these are companies. I really wanted to speak more about organizations which now are focusing on a defined career path. Having said that, imagine a visual. You are in a jeep on a trek in the Himalayas. No street lights. The lamp lights of the headlights of the vehicle give you visibility only for the next 10 meters. So if you're saying, I'm God's gift to mankind, I'm the best talent, I'm joining as management trainee, show me the career path today. It ain't gonna happen. Buddy, one day at a time, one quarter at a time. Prove yourself and the road clears up. Just like a jeep on a trek jeep going on inch by inch, minute by minute, 10 meters by 10 meters.
Yeah, I think it's a journey to discovering your own self.
Yes. And you hit a very, very important point about there has to be ownership. And therefore, if you see in a lot of companies, even in interview assessment form, there's a term called self-initiative. And when I go to these management institutes and interview, I want them to give me data, proof of concept about. So one says, so what's your strength? I'm very high on initiative. Okay, give me 2 examples. Then the guy is scratching his head for 3 minutes. So how come? Or somebody who says, I'm amazing at problem solving. And by the way, I missed one important competency factor in the leadership. Dude, if you are not a problem solver, you're a professor. Good. lecture,
Good one.
conceptual, good. Look, companies, and even if you take the startup world, the e-commerce world, Swiggy or Zomato or Lenskart, they started by fixing a problem and they made, or Zepto, for instance. These two young guys from Wharton, right? They, not Wharton, Stanford. They came down saying, how can I get in 10 minutes groceries for Neha, sitting at the comfy of her air-conditioned drawing room? What a problem to solve. So I would encourage entry-level to mid-level people to really have an inquisitive mind, proactive inquisitive mind, to find what problems are there. That's how innovation happens and creativity manifests.
Very important.
And it's the Japanese thinking of Kaizen, incremental improvements every day. I always tell people, there's a quote, right? Rome was not built in a day. You're right, Rome was built every day.
Wow. True.
Overnight, I won't become a CEO, right? And the other conflict which comes is, maybe I'm preempting, in leadership, promote generalization versus specialization. Okay? So, and the famous example I give is Burj Khalifa. Firstly, begin with inch wide but mile deep. You got to be known in the industry for one thing. AI analytics, it's Neha. Marketing, so-and-so person. You build your brand. And what's a brand? I'm digressing. What's a brand? Any which brand you say. If you go to any marketing lecture or guru or any book, the number one characteristic of a brand is a 5-letter word called TRUST, trust. Pick a product, which is your favorite. You pick it up time and again, whether it's your attire or accessories or anything. The logic or the emotive power behind the choice is trust.
True. Trust builds brand equity.
Absolutely. So I convert that marketing language into individuals saying, Mr. X, are you a brand? Saying, so what do you mean? Are you known in your company? So I'll give you one personal example at the risk of sounding a little about myself. So when I joined a company as a management trainee, so there were 6-7 of us from various management institutes. Obviously, it's very competition. And this was told to me by my boss. So this 5-6 guys and says, sir, we have a complaint against you. He said, what? You're showing favoritism towards Pramod. And he said, that's an allegation, actually. I'm very upset. But prove it. Why do you say that? He said, no, we've seen when we give some reports to you, you tell us, okay, leave it. And you take a day, half a day, and then you send us, and then you go through it. And you sometimes return to us saying, do this correction. But we have seen Pramod's report, we're standing, you're on a phone, you just sign off. He said, that is consistent, error-free, immaculate data. And so today, Pramod has given me a confidence, I don't need to check. That is, what I call it, Neha? I call it evangelizing excellence. You evangelize, it's your DNA. I was once running a temperature of 104. I could have easily nobody would have blamed me, but I had a commitment to the boss, an internal deadline. I worked till 3 in the morning in the office. There's nobody else, but I had to do it. And there's not boasting or something. It's an ethic.
I love that. I hope everybody is listening to this.
It's a work ethic. And not to prove anybody else, you're competing with yourself. Am I a tad better than what I was yesterday? So having that awareness for inching towards excellence every which day, Rome was built. So coming back, take one field, but excellent in that. So, sometimes in an interview, you would have also interviewed people, you say, what are your hobbies? Then they say, reading. Oh, so what do you read? Oh, I read Midday, I read Illustrated Weekly, and India Today. That's not reading. You say, you pick one genre, Alfred Hitchcock, Shakespeare, Harry Potter, and you've done everything and you ask me anything. Or you say stamp collection and the guy's mastery. So what organizations are looking at, your tenacity of purpose And I'll want to use this word, are you up for the grind? Look, beyond all this corporate glamour, honestly, all these successful leaders have put the hard yards in the dark hours of early morning, late night, the grind. Nothing. And I don't know, I don't very much agree with work, all this David, hard work, smart work. I always tell people, so which one? I said, yes, smart work, working smart is important, but to work smart, you need to first work hard. Then you discover the ways to work smart. So these are some of the things. And one more important thing, you touched a very good point. How do you hire? How do you see? Why do you think Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Effective People, became a Bible? Forget world bestseller. Why? Because the word habit, HABIT, and I'm now going to do some restructuring. Remove H, a bit still remains. Remove A, bit still remains. Remove B, it still remains. And therefore, your driving school or the way you do your reports, you're an architect, you know, I've seen your work, your meticulous drawings, meeting deadlines, you developed habits very. The moment you start compromising early, guess what? It's a DNA. It's a pattern. And then it becomes, I'm using a very, very deadly word, it becomes your default setting. Your default setting is, hey, come on, Pramod, the world's not going to fall. It's okay, I'll give it tomorrow. You are not a bad person. It becomes your habit. Pramod, that much error, it's okay. Nobody's perfect. No. In fact, when you start actually growing up, it's the small thing that let you down. In fact, I want to also be modest and humble and say, I've failed quite a few times. And now when I look back, it was not the big picture. It was the slip between the cup and the lip. It was not tying the shoelaces, symbolically speaking. All right? I'm a good runner, but I didn't tie my shoelaces. Okay? Just that every little bit on a daily basis, that's what becomes your DNA. And then that becomes a brand. And then your fragrance spreads in the organization. Oh, this one, just go to here. How did Hafiz Contractor, you are from the world of architecture. Hafiz Contractor is like a brand. He built it every day. Or any of the iconic people who have achieved excellence, right? They built every day. So that discipline, A, has to come from me, and of course complemented by organizational support.
And this can be developed.
It can be developed.
So when a person enters, no
Yes.
matter what he gets to the table, he can start from scratch and develop this DNA of habit. Right?
You heard it.
Yeah.
You heard of mentoring concept? That's what mentors are for an organization.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to share a real life data. When I worked with Microsoft, I was pleasantly surprised, in fact, little alarmed. Do you know what at that time, maybe it's still true, but I was told that time by very seniors, Pramod, you know what's the highest reward in Microsoft which is valued and respected? Not the high bonus, not the high stock options. The day you're picked as a mentor, it's a salute. It's a signature to your leadership. And why I'm using this is, when greenhorns enter an organization, they need role models. And therefore, I insist on people to develop internal leadership pipeline. They then, success begets success.
Carry the legacy.
It's a Pygmalion effect. You attract, good attracts good. So he brings in that. And then he teaches the discipline. There's mentoring. So it's a huge art and a science. So to answer your question, can it be engineered? Can it be structured? Absolutely. Right? But the given is, are you in for the game? Do you want to play the big boys game? Are you up for the grind? Then when the two combine, magic happens. And then leadership, and then they grow companies.
I think the spine is the core leadership, right? That's where it starts. And then you're saying it expands and reflects into the entire team.
I'll give a very silly physics example. Water flows from top to down. Very simplistic, but it's saying a lot.
Yeah.
It cascades down. And the leadership.
Always top to bottom approach.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this field is very fascinating, and therefore I'm in this space. I love. Somebody asked me, "What's your high?" My nirvana moment, my Zen moment, is when I enable others to succeed, and it also
Amazing.
comes from my gurus and my coach who taught me about abundance mentality.
Who is your favorite mentor?
There are many of them. It would be unfair to quote one. Um, there's no such
Few.
thing. And also, why I'm refusing to put favorite is, each one is a leader in their domain competence. There are people
Which
who
are the ones who were the most impactful in your journey of becoming a leader and a coach?
So I got certified by Dr. Marshall Goldsmith as a global coach. He's unbelievable. I don't even want to quote his prices. You'll fall off your chair. I was wondering, really, why would people pay so much money? He spends 90 minutes with you. He makes that quintessential shift in your stancing, in your mental stancing, and then you're rocking it. 1. 2. I worked for Mr. Gates. I didn't report to him, obviously, it's too, but his fragrance cascades down to his boss and eventually to my boss and to me. So I thought he built a fantastic company. In fact, I want to quote one episode. It was shared in a conference in New Orleans. A father wrote an email to Bill Gates when his son joined as a systems engineer at the start. And he produced a copy of that email on this big screen. 10,000 people in the auditorium, in that football stadium. And it said, "Mr. Gates, I'm so happy my son has joined a company which makes other people successful." Look at Google.
Profound.
Google has empowered you. At a click of today, you don't even have to type, it's voice. I mean, this knowledge base
Yeah.
from a dish in North India or a Nalli saris in South India, right, to which is the best restaurant in Paris, at a click of a button, how much has empowered you?
Yeah.
So imagine companies, and no wonder their stock value rocks.
Yeah. I think the health of the company clearly is defined by.
And there's another underlying lesson. You actually become rich when you make others rich.
True.
When you make others succeed, you will succeed by default.
Abundance.
Abundance
comes back.
mentality.
Yeah.
You know, I read a lot about the ethical leadership with which Mr. Narayan Murthy built Infosys, with the kind of humble backgrounds. I think it's a story. Many years back, in an interview, the interviewer said, about 15 years back, at that point in time, the total wealth he had distributed through stocks was 85,000 crores. And those days, the joke was his driver was worth 27 crores because he was an employee and he got stock options. Now, how do you build value into the stock? Everyday innovation.
The intention to
Guardrails.
also give and share, right? The collective growth. I think that really reflects in the company.
See, you go from individual excellence to building. Eventually, it's about legacy.
Yeah.
It's about community. And boy, oh boy, you then leave behind a stamp of excellence and authority. All right? People will give it to you. Even you don't have to hanker for it. But behind that is toil and hard work and minute details and a vision and passion. So in coaching, we identify those gaps. And the good part of my coaching is it's very outcome based, which means, let's say I coach you in a competence on decision making. So it's not a psychological pep talk by quacks as they do it. Oh, don't worry. I give you a metric. I give you a process. You need to come back to me after 2 months with data supporting whether you augmented or not. And that
Amazing.
data, Neha, is not by you. It is by your stakeholders, the 10 people working under, below, beside you, who will opine on you and saying this person is improved. And that's how the whole thing. So it's a very fascinating discipline about another one which a lot of people become victim of is unconscious bias. It's like I said, you don't even know about it. And that brings to what you said, how are you self-aware? And there are various methods,
To get to that.
and of course, deep introspection through meditative process is one good one.
So, Pramod, we see these two categories of companies today. One is very healthy, one has like a very healthy, thriving culture, but then the others are struggling, like the Googles of the world or the Apples of the world. They have the numbers, they have the health of the organization, and overall a very positive, healthy culture
Sure.
with the numbers.
Yep.
So, I want to know your perspective on what's the differentiator here.
Between companies who drive health and revenues and
Yes.
companies who only drive revenues.
Yes.
It's interesting because I was at the Google campus in Cupertino a few years back. Amazing. The ethos behind that was, of course, they're a very cash-rich company. They can afford milkshake stores and free cafes and all that. But they also have this colored bicycles on the campus, and there's yoga session going on, this, that, and everything. During those days, I discovered something interesting. From the 4th month of pregnancy of a women employee, she doesn't have to come to office. An entire office is set up at her home. Laundry is picked up, and meals are served by the company. If that's not wellness and holistic employee health, just imagine the commitment and loyalty of an employee apart from the razor sharp technology that this person is working with or under. I mean, that combination is amazing, right? Of course, they're hardcore on results and revenues when so much is pumped in. So I think companies who don't invest in overall health, they're playing penny wise, pound foolish. How much money? Just invest. And more than the money, I think it's a body language of investment in your holistic health. Okay.
First,
So,
let's define it. Like, what do you mean when you say a healthy culture company? What are the elements?
first of all, freedom to deliver results, absence of bureaucracy, huge presence of meritocracy, good system support, an attention when an employee's performance drops or there are changes in behavioral. Maybe they have counselors around. There's a term for it, there's a jargon called safe space. Providing a safe space in an organization, which means any harassment issues to unfairness, there are structured checks and balances systems to detect and flush it out. Right? Another one, for instance, skip level meetings. So you're my boss, I'm not happy with you. Without your knowledge, I can see your boss and put the facts and seek their help so that there is no retaliatory practice from your side simply because I. In fact, you as a leader are coached that should there be negative feedback, don't take it negatively, take it as your area of improvement. Okay? The other part of a healthy organization is going beyond the profit and the revenues to do community development. See, you're then building a brand image. You're then telling it's not just about money-mindedness. We also want to spread.
Yeah, can you think of an example of a company that comes
In
to-
India,
Yeah.
Zerodha, I think, has done a fantastic job. Both the Kamath brothers, in fact, for records to tell you, they actually have a metric in appraisal which is linked to the minimum 10,000 steps that each employee takes.
Yeah.
They've been given a Fitbit or a watch like this, so no lies, and it's straight away linked to the server, so you can't manipulate it. And guess what? People who qualify as a benchmark, they're given motorbikes and cars as prizes. So the incentive is not just to madly drive results, but also be in a good shape. I'll tell you another example. When they do this employee health checkups, very subtly, they also observe that you've developed a disease which does not make you a lasting horse. You're told that, they make out with his cerebral competence notwithstanding, this guy is going to have diabetes, he's going to slow down, you see. But they offer the care and the medical attention, if you will, to see that where they can circumvent that and sort of bounce back. And the most important thing is respect and fairness. Believe me, mental health and wellness emerges from a feeling of not being respected at workplace. I've in my coaching business, I've come across a lot of people. I mean, let's take burnout for instance. What is burnout? Simple, no dictionary, no Google definition. For me, burnout is the day you get up in the morning and don't feel like going to the office.
Yeah,
Even
simply put.
Very simply put, you're burning out. Maybe you're worn out in that job, or you're not augmenting your talent by going through certificates. There's something which is sort of pulling you back, okay? And what makes burnout worse is when you're paid very highly, then there's no incentive also. And therefore, a lot of companies have invigorated a performance culture of shape up or shape out, right? So you can't go into such companies saying, I've earned my stars and stripes. I'm very comfortable where I am, and I don't want any more growth. No. You either really improve or thank you. I think you're tired. You want to seek other things in life, family life, trekking, spirituality, whatever it is. Good luck to you. Thank you for serving us. Because they want your intellectual throughput to constantly add to the product development and value addition of the company to the revenues.
How can they resolve this?
Resolve the
Because burnout rates are going pretty high today.
Yeah.
Like we see every day there's a news from the corporate world of burnout, and there are suicides and so many health issues, right? And it's grave. But let's get to the solution to this. Like, what do you think can resolve this?
Okay. Let me first start with what's happening in India. A lot of organizations today are implementing yoga programs. They are implementing what I read recently was breathworks workshop, which is different from yoga. Okay. Extrasensory perception. How do you develop that? There are actually organizations which also institute meditation as a practice. All right. And of course, we talked about Zerodha, where they're promoting through a very different mechanism. So if you don't want to be just a great performer, you're also a good, healthy individual. In fact, you remind me, I just saw some data.
Sure.
Look at this wonderful statistics. So this is as per Gallup State of Global Workplace. 50% increased employee retention and engagement, which is the antithesis of burnout. Okay? Job rotation, so that you peaked out, now you're reaching to stretch assignment, you go out. Another data point. This is as per World Health Organization. 25 to 40% reduction in absenteeism. All right. And that's very important. Gallup Workplace and Deloitte, they both have done a study. Thanks to employee wellness programs and health orientation, holistic health orientation, there's been a 20 to 30% improvement in productivity. And lastly, this is interesting. This is a Harvard Business Review data point. 2 to 5x return on investment purely as a derivative of wellness as a high yield strategic asset.
Yes.
I repeat,
Yes.
wellness as a high yield strategic asset. Look, business pressures on margin or anyway, then it's only getting worse. How do you then take care of an employee? I mean, reach out, outreach program, communicate, evolve channels and processes by which an employee doesn't feel suffocated and vent it out. And more importantly, this is what the employee said. Call in all your leaders and managers and tell them how to handle it, and be more than just a revenue-driven leader, and be empathetic. And here I want to quote something. I would recommend the viewers here to read a book called Hit Refresh by Satya Nadella. What a book. Here is Globe's one of the most successful companies leader, and Hit Refresh is a lot about empathy. Not about revenues, not about scalar models, not about vector models. It's really about The more empathy you show, the more the employee is saying, wow, I'm being cared, and this is the highest form of respect at workplace.
And the core of leadership.
Core of leadership, right? And once you have your top brass, the water cascades down, the role models happen, the mentors happen, and this junior guy knows, you know what, if I need to get there, it's not my revenues. It is these holistic things.
Yeah.
Am I a nurturer? Am I an empathetic listener? Am I a very fair guy? Am I a guy who's investing in my growth and development? Right? We talked of levers earlier on. Levers actually used to have, I don't know whether they still have, in your appraisal, if there are 100 points, excuse me, 5 to 10% is on a factor called efforts taken to develop your subordinate. How is that? So for instance, you did wacko, great sales numbers, and you got very high marks. And then they say you didn't take any effort to develop even somebody as low as your secretary by sending her for latest AI programs and all that.
The give back.
You know what's going to happen? And there have been cases that say, you know what? Your sales numbers, I'm rewarding you this 300% bonus or 100% bonus. But sorry, dude, you're not cutting it for promotion. Now that hurts. Promotion gives him a car, a bigger house. And he said, oh my God, I just took my eye off the ball on this component called efforts taken. So the empathy stuff is gone. And because of that, he's just lost the next track. All right. So these are little things. You don't turn up for training programs on time. You're blacklisted for a year. So this is around your skill development program. No matter how senior you are given a message. You don't clock in, you're out, or you're blacklisted. So it's a bit of carrot and stick. There's a bit of push and pull, and there's a lot about being positive and constructive. Even the messaging is about something not good. So it's not destructive. And that is what this holistic, I call it the level 6 leadership style, about really building a long-lasting organization through people. So you raised a good point about, because burnout is in the face with a combination of things. And unless a company and the individual, he has to do his bit, proactively don't recognize that as a important step and do the needful, I think you're a short-term runner. And don't make it a sprint. It is a marathon. Companies want to survive 3, 4, 5, 6 decades, and therefore an employee has to go through 5, 6, 7 business cycles, the crest and trough of a sine curve. They need to see how you handled and navigated and calibrated your stuff. So that's.
I mean, coming back to the culture that we started with. So we are building a corporate wellness brand called Coevolve, and here what we believe is the physical, mental, emotional health of an employee leads to the financial health of the company.
Okay.
So, what's your perspective on this?
I mean,
or how would you kind of decode this with your coaching and leadership? Where does leadership fit into this?
Okay. Obviously, every company wants to have a healthy growth trajectory, and the people who are delivering have to be. So let's start with the physical part of it. It's a tragedy when a very talented guy is a victim of hypertension, stress, cardiac disease, because you've just got a brilliant guy who took the company from A to B or B to Z, signing off for things not related to performance, but as physical wellness. So obviously a lot of awareness is being created apart from the health checkups and all that. And honestly, if you don't take those steps, you're pulled up for counseling, physical. Let's take the mental part. The peer pressure and toxicity, if and where it's there, if there is no system and a process to identify it and flush it out, it will perpetuate. And how? Very fast, very deep, and very dangerously so. You won't even know when it started, right? So, of course, there are counselors, there are people who are told. For instance, if a guy takes 3 wrong decisions, let's say you're a treasury guy sitting there, every minute counts, you're doing trading there, and your 5 calls go wrong that day, the company has the capacity to absorb the financial loss, but he's called, are you okay? So I was once in a bank and I went to meet the treasury guy, And he said, come, let's take a walk around the treasury floor. So like there was a treasury platform and there's a raised platform. See, he and I took a walk. And then he said, wait, come. And he was behind the chair of one trader. He made 5 wrong calls in like 3 minutes. So I was shocked what happened next. This guy put his hands on his shoulder. He said, dude, young guy, Premier League IM Institute, do you have a girlfriend? This is like 11 a.m. Peak treasury, markets at the peak. Do you have a girlfriend? He said, yes. He just went, I know that. The movie and the dinner is on me, go. 11 o'clock, he said, go. It's not your day today. That extrasensory perception, he's doing wrong calls, something is bugging him.
Yeah.
Go. I mean, this is life, what I experienced. So that's the mental
And
part.
that comes with leadership, right? Authentic leadership, like that sensitivity.
Very much.
Yeah.
And therefore, a leadership has to be by role modeling himself. Now, you know, in a day's work, a lot of reactions come. It's called not exactly a poker faced, but can you remain composed? So how do you nurture composure amongst employees, especially in a high risk function like sales or trading, right? Conversely, if there's bad news of any which kind, what is the culture there in that company to absorb, right? So to me, and it overlaps with the next part, is the emotional health, right? No brainers, no big deal that low emotional health will destroy high cerebral prowess. Because if you're not in that space, let me give an example. If you are head of a department and you're taking decisions which impact company's growth and decisions which impact people's lives, some hope in hell, madam, that if there is a clutter here and there is huge confusion going on here, to be or not to be, there's some hope in hell you'll take right decision, whether it's on hiring, employer. Imagine you're disturbed and you're recruiting at one of the campuses. You will make wrong choices and thereby harming the company. So therefore, this whole emotional health is very important.
That brings me to a question, by the way. Do you think IQ is more important or EQ?
Okay. So my favorite quote, which I tell everybody, IQ gets you the chair, the job. EQ helps you to prosper in that. How's that?
Wow. Love it.
Your GPA score at IIT or IIM Bombay and the top 10 percentile gets you that job.
Lovely.
But how will you succeed and nurture depends on your emotional health, therefore the EQ.
So it goes hand in hand.
Very much, absolutely. And
The
in
head
fact,
and the heart.
yeah, the head and the heart. And honestly, you will not grow if you're not developing emotional maturity.
Or intelligence.
Or intelligence, right? And therefore, this thing about expanding your consciousness, which leverages subconscious and merges with the superconscious. In simple words, jargon's about how self-aware you are about yourself. You know, I always ask in my leadership training programs, are you even aware of even the slightest gesture of yours? What impact it's having? Oh, I don't care, I need work done. You know, this body language is, oh, I don't care, I need work done. You're just damaged. And in the long run, you will damage yourself. So that high emotional awareness is very, very important. And the last one, of late today, conscious awareness, there is a lot of study by Dr. Brian Weiss, by Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? Wayne Dyer?
Yeah. Tony Robbins.
Where they've really brought about, you cannot compartmentalize and the one thing overlaps with the other. Because a human body or the asset which comes into work, it's a composite of all these forces. So training leaders to spot this and coach is important. Why do you think I give an example of Microsoft? Being mentor was the most coveted award, not even a promotion, because then the organization has accepted and recognized you're high on maturity, you're capable of training another 10 mentees.
True.
What a body language.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, you being a mentor, also, I want to know what is your lifestyle, to be a leader and to be, to keep going basically in this leadership domain.
So for me, the number one thing is resilience. You know why? When things are going great, everybody is hero. It's when context, economy, pandemic, and such other things knock you in the face. Then do you say, bring it on? I bring out all my resilience to face it. Do you sulk and get vanquished? Or you say, I had good time. Now is the time to test out everything that I thought I learned or I've invested in. All right. So for me, resilience and calming things down, because the leader, they're looking. So one thing you'll hear of all leaders, good leaders, they're calm composure. Yes or yes. Yeah. Right?
Totally.
I mean, if you're shaken, then the troops also go for a toss. Imagine an army commander leading troops, a platoon of troops in mountains and hills in a wartime. I mean, he's class act of decision making, priority, empathy, sympathy, direction. Beautiful, So, and therefore, there's this very famous saying, right? A ship is safest in the docks. But that's not what ships are built for.
Yeah.
They're actually built for handling the rough seas. So all your prep, muscles and all is no point if you're not putting it to test when the situation demands it. So it's called, the litmus test, right? So that gets tested. And there are 10, 12, 15 such episodes, shows you where you are on your growth curve. And that data points are absolutely recorded. The other thing is, people at me, when I coach leaders, have to be definitely more knowledgeable and superior than my subordinate. That's what I'm a boss. They come to me. Number 3, Neha, the most important, if I can't solve problems, I'm a clerk, notwithstanding my designation of a senior VP. I have to solve problems. The biggest people, the most successful, the most loved people, the most voted as best leaders are people, come what may, they provide solutions. Otherwise, they don't want your theoretical jargons and bullshit. They need solutions, especially in times of crisis. Okay. The other thing I think is, which is my philosophy, I get great joy when somebody else prospers because of my intervention. That's abundance mentality, which I learned from Stephen Covey and a whole lot of other leaders and mentors. It takes a lot of large heart to really grow. And honestly, I've seen when you actually have to grow, you grow yourself.
Yeah.
So there's this lovely quote I read, and this is very interesting. You cannot degenerate yourself a little without hating others. And you cannot ennoble yourself more without loving others. So when you love others, in the process you ennoble yourself. And when there's a resentment and judgment and subconscious bias, you're degenerating.
It reflects back.
It reflects and it's working. Your ecosystem internally, the cells are getting destroyed. A whole lot of chemicals are not working. Those 4 positive ones, oxytocin, all those, they're not working. They're destroying your cells. But there are no physical symbols. Why do people die of sudden cardiac arrest? So much, forget the pathological aspects apart if somebody has got. But when people carry a lot of negative emotions, oh boy, it is going to manifest. It is. And then there's another concept in psychology called displaced aggression. You had a fight at your family in home. You had a car bashed up by somebody while driving. You'd be lying if it does not show at 10 o'clock in the meeting. You're human. Now, the trick is, okay, I locked my house door. Fine, I had a squabble at home with my son, daughter, wife, whoever. Okay, but that's it. Here I'm in the office. I'm into another compartment. But the flow of the 2 compartments, it's very difficult to map, and furthermore difficult to abort it. Not impossible. And the one way to do that is, I call it intentionality. I think intentionality is super critical. Sometimes it complements your skills. Say you got brilliant, you're a 10 on 10 on a particular skill or a domain expertise, but you don't have intentionality, you're not there. You're not adding value.
Intention is everything starts from there.
So to me, conscious leadership, in fact, I'm working on a concept called authentic leadership. Authentic leadership is this, where you have courage of conviction. So 5 things, Neha, on authentic leadership. Number 1, clarity. You got muck going on here, some hope in hell, you'll give a clear decision to the team looking up to you. Clarity of thought, first C. Second, what do you do with that clarity? Second C, you need to create and add value. It's called creativity. So you got clarity, but there's no agility. You're not creating, no use. Third, and this is a deadly one. Whenever I have failed, it's because of absence of this. Then I've succeeded because of this. Courage. You're nothing with due respects to your degrees and qualifications. So with clarity, you need creativity. To need creativity, you need courage. Number 3, which I linked up to my 5th leadership about ability to get along, connectedness. There's this very common quote, your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
Oft quoted. You don't build community and people don't see you. Hey, listen, what is this whole Insta world and this viewership all about, followership? People have to love you, man. And that's what, in fact, even if you're less competent, less able, but you're very loving and compassionate, people will take to you than to an arrogant intellectual who thinks no end of himself. So my 4th C is connectedness. And last and the best is compassion. So I repeat, conscious leadership, authentic leadership, clarity of thought, creating some value out of that clarity, building up courage and literally invoking that courage because there are a lot of competitors, there are a lot of naysayers, there are a lot of people pulling you down, right? When they see you screwing, you need to have courage to encounter that and go on with this thing. Courage, conviction, whatever. And boss, you need to be connected with people. People have to love you. And lastly, have the human in you. So this whole thing about humanoid and the bionics and all is about AI plus human emotions. All right.
I love that. I think that's such a comprehensive way to put it. But that brings me to probably our last question.
Okay.
Is how do you practice this in your daily life to maintain these qualities in you as a leader?
Okay. So firstly, most humbly, let me admit, I'm work in progress.
We all are.
Okay. So I don't even for a minute pretend or give an impression that I've mastered it all. Every day is a learning. Okay. So first thing is having good intention of positivity,
Yeah. No, so I also, what I want to know is on a daily life, what are the practices that you do to keep yourself centered and, these attributes that you mentioned? So let's give them a playbook in a way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give us a day in your life.
Yeah. So, and I'm not trying here to be a guru or something, but nothing empowers me more than a deep meditation. And in India, I'm here, so I want to talk about, there's a concept called Brahma Muhurtam. Brahma Muhurtam is pre-dawn. Apparently, the stratosphere is most conducive to evolve you as a human being, and the transmission that you attract and your own inner perceptive power, 5:30, phenomenal. And what it gives, it doesn't fix your problems, okay, but it gives you the phenomenal inner strength, right? So it's like an umbrella. You can't stop the rains, but it protects you against the rains. You have an umbrella. So first is that practice, okay. Second is, even by mistake, I don't want to think or do anything which is harming others. It will come back to eat me. And
that quality comes from this practice of...
This practice, but I would like to hear in most humbly say, it's come hugely from my parents. I know everybody loves this parents, so I don't want to go about praising them. But boy, I mean, what following my parents are. They're not Instagram people. They're 80 plus, 90 plus. But people love them for their simplicity and clean-heartedness.
Purity.
Helping others. Oh my God. And I want to tell viewers one thing here. The biggest weapon you can carry ever in life against any calamity or any problem is helping nature. I'm calling it an ammunition.
You also get oxytocin with
Oxytocin. You help others.
Yeah.
You're building such an amazing defense mechanism. I mean, you have no idea how it sort of comes back with a genuine intent. So number 2 is my parents, meditation, parents. I come out of people who are negative. I take them out of my lives because life is too short, too many wonderful things. So you need to cut out. Now, I know you can't wish it away, but you can stop reacting to them and pray and bless them off. That doesn't mean I don't get anger when I'm betrayed. Betrayal is the worst thing which can happen to somebody. But then there are legal mechanisms and there's a process to it rather than indulging in negative retaliation. All right? You do your bit. There's one lovely Chinese proverb which says, you stand straight and worry not if a shadow is crooked. How's that?
Wow.
Because if the laws of physics are right and sun rays are there, you stand straight, your shadow cannot be crooked. Symbolizing you just be good yourself first.
Yeah.
That's very important. So I remove myself from people who are, and I think for me the last thing is, in fact, people have defined that. I think I've inherited this one, stoicism. Stoic philosophy is not raving and ranting about everything that, come on, God didn't give a promissory note to your mother, oh, your child, no problems will happen. We're all susceptible, right? And therefore the word there is not acceptance, cheerful acceptance.
Yeah.
Because that is also a derivative of resilience. What's the point? I mean, bad things are going to happen to you. Accept it. You're not God's gift to mankind that nothing will happen to you. And you win some, you lose some. All of us have gone through. Everybody has faced insults, humiliation, rejection, unfairness. One thing I want to really talk about, and I'm still work in progress on this, and some people are there who are stars because, this concept of snapping out. I envy people who snap out. Snap out of a negative environment. Otherwise, you're brooding and brooding and brooding, and like a termite eating the door or the wooden door, the worry. So 3 things, fear, doubt, and worry are the termites. Imagine constant fear, imagine constant doubt, suspicion of people, and most important, worrying, right? Snapping out of it. And I actually would love to meet people. I would like to learn more. And I want to meet people who have developed this amazing ability to snap out of anything negative. Because the bounce back, the next moment is about that. The bounce back. I think these are some of the things which I'm practicing. So I will not say I've mastered it, but I'm a student for life. I'm learning there, going there. And of course, always being trying to be in a positive frame of mind. And if I may give a little spiritual, at one point in time, with due respects to your macho abilities and your cerebral, there's a concept of surrender to higher power. Actually, surrender also teaches you humility. Surrender doesn't make you weak. Surrender to higher power. That there are things outside your control. Do you have the humility and courage to accept it? Not every day and everything will go my way. These are some of the things which I try and practice. I observe with people. I learn from them. Apart from them, the usual stuff, reading some great scriptures, reading some great works, articles, blogs. I mean,
amazing.
Simple, earthy, that kind of stuff. And as I said, you win some, you lose some. And as long as you keep your chin up and snap out, I think it's okay,
Lovely. Thank you so much.
And when you do that as a leader, people observing that, it transmits and it radiates.
Totally.
And
can't
therefore,
agree more.
Authentic leadership is about building that inner weather, WATHER, because outside weather is hot, cold, rain. But you develop your inner weather in such a way that, bring it on, I'm up here to face it. I mean, those are some of the things, Neha.
No, that is amazing. And thank you so much for all this wisdom.
You're welcome.
I think I look forward to many more of these. We've
Sure.
just started. But
Sure.
yeah,
No, but not as a cliche or as a practice. I genuinely feel full of gratitude for giving me the opportunity. By Coevolve, by you, simply because a lot of us carry, but a lot of people don't get platforms. And this whole life is about adding value to others through your influence. This to me, I hope viewers who are going to listen to this, I hope I've passed on at least one or two bits. It's been of a value add.
I'm sure.
Because
Yes.
this has been a very genuine, authentic effort. And I've spoken my heart out. No filters, no nothing. I've just expressed what I felt because that's what you bring about
Yeah,
in this
and
very
that's what
natural-
reaches out.
Fantastic.
Like you said, the intention matters the most.
Absolutely.
And I can feel that your intention is to give. And I'm sure the viewers are going to benefit a lot out of this. So thank you again.
Thank you, Neha. It's been a pleasure
See you
and look
soon.
forward to many more.
Yes.
Thank you.